Good evening, everyone. Well, my name is Anna Gorvich, and I am a PhD candidate and research assistant at the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport. And I am thrilled to welcome you all to our distinguished lecture today. I'm introducing, on behalf of the Tucker Center, housed in the College of Education and College of Education Human Development in the School of Kinesiology at the University of Minnesota. And thank you all for coming today to our lecture that I'm so incredibly excited about. For some background, the Tucker Center was established in 1993 with a generous gift from Dr. Dorothy Tucker, a 1945 graduate of the U of M in the School of Kinesiology. The Tucker Center was the first interdisciplinary research center of its kind established within a major research university, and the Tucker Center has become a catalyst for change and a global thought leader for girls and women in sport. The Tucker Center has a threefold mission. First, to conduct solution-based research on the impact of sport in the lives of girls and women. Second, to provide first-rate educational opportunities for both graduate and undergraduate students. And third, to engage in community outreach and public service. This distinguished lecture series brings all parts of that mission together by creating a forum that allows the best and the brightest to share their insights, knowledge, and expertise on various aspects of women's involvement in sport and physical activity. Tonight's lecture is no exception, as we'll hear from Dr. Phillippa Diedrichs. But first, I'd like to introduce the director of the Tucker Center, Dr. Nicole Lavoie. Dr. Lavoie is a senior lecturer in the School of Kinesiology in the area of social and behavioral sciences, and Dr. Lavoie is a leading global international scholar on gender, leadership, and women coaches, publishing frequently across multiple disciplines. As a public scholar, she consults with a variety of stakeholder groups, works with industry partners, and speaks around the world, fields media requests, provides thought leadership, and serves on numerous mission-driven advisory boards related to girls and women in sport. She is an award-winning athlete and coach, distinguished teacher, regional Emmy winner, and two-time Hall of Fame inductee, and I'm very lucky to have her as my advisor. So please welcome Dr. Lavoie.
Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everyone. Yay! Thanks, Hannah. The DLS is really a special place where we get to come together, create space and community to have conversations about some of the hot topics around girls and women in sport and bring in some of the best and brightest scholars to help inform those conversations. And, you know, in our busy worlds, we all have competing things where we can choose to put our time. So thank you for joining us here tonight to create space for yourself. And then please stay and join us for some refreshments in the lobby after the conclusion of the lecture. So thank you all for those in the room who continue to support us, who come to our events, who use the research and the tools that we create for social good in our communities. We really could not do this without you. And a special thanks to the Tucker team, to Anna Gorovich, to Lindsay Hofer, and the Tucker team, intern team that you've seen in the lobby, and some are sitting here and in the lobby. We can't hold events or do anything that we do. I can't, Dr. Diedrichs says, how do you do all the things that you do? And I go, I don't, we do it. So thank you all for your part in the success of the Tucker Center. Behind the scenes, we have Jonathan Sweet and Brian Mitlich, who are part of the staff of the School of Kinesiology, who also support us. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that our founder of the Tucker Center, Professor Mary Jo Kane, we would not be in this room without you, Dr. Kane. Dr. Kane founded the center in 1993, as Anna said, with a generous gift from Dr. Dorothy Tucker. So thank you. I stand on your shoulders. Yep. So before I introduce our special guest and our lecturer tonight, I want to set the scene for what she will share with us tonight, which will be followed by a conversation between the two of us and then a brief question and answer from the audience. So central to the mission of the Tucker Center, as you heard Anna say, is that we want to make sport a better place for girls and women. through our research, through our education, and our outreach. And in the fall of 2019, I started a conversation with Nike about if and how we were maybe going to collaborate around a tool, a program, an initiative that would make an impact for girls and women in sport. And what that conversation led to was the founding of what is now Coaching Her. And Coaching Her, for those of you who don't know, is a free digital tool that equips coaches to more effectively coach girls. And I am really proud of this tool. And our vision is that Coaching Her becomes the universal foundation standard. When you think Coaching Her, you think of coaching girls in sport. It's evidence-informed, it's collaboratively developed with world-class scholars from around the world, and it's rigorously tested. And we launched Coaching Her in the fall of 2023 with our foundational course. And the foundational course addresses the often overlooked issues of gender bias and stereotypes for girls in sport, recognizing girls' identities, meeting girls' needs, and removing participation barriers for girls. And we, to date, have had thousands of coaches taking this, more and more every day. So that launched in the fall of 2023. Our newest course within Coaching Her is our menstrual health course, which was developed by Dr. Sarah Zip of Power to Play Period, and our very own Anna Gorovich, who helped develop and test the menstrual health modules, which focus on the importance of the menstrual cycle, debunk menstruation myths, and help coaches create period-friendly environments and just normalize talking about menstruation in sport for girls and women. In between these two important courses that are part of Coaching Her, we have signed up over 21 national champions that are putting forth Coaching Her in their organizations, 16 regional champions, and we're about to launch educational champions for faculty like myself who teach in coaching courses, coaching ed, kinesiology, gender studies, psychology of coaching around the US that can use Coaching Her as tools in the classroom with ready-made discussion guides. And we also have a monthly playbook that we just launched in September. So if you would like to get involved, become a champion, get the newsletter, learn more about Coaching Her, you can go to coachingher.com and then contact us and sign up. And we would love to involve all of you. And there's some of you in this room that are already underway. So thank you for your support of Coaching Her. So in between the foundational course and the menstrual modules, we launched Body Confidence Sport. And as you'll hear more about tonight in detail, Body Confidence Sport is designed to help coaches create body positive climates, reduce negative body image, and reduce body talk and promote body confidence with their athletes and their teams. And it was a 4-partner collaboration, which you'll hear more about. And one of those collaborators was Dr. Phillippa Diedrichs. And so it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, one of the most brilliant thought leaders in this space, a world-class expert, a smart, funny, generous colleague who has really taught me a lot about how to be a better scholar, a better public scholar, and a better researcher. So Dr. Professor Phillippa Diedrichs is a social scientist on a mission, and when I say mission, she is on a mission, to create a world where no one is held back by their appearance, gender, or identity. An internationally recognized psychologist, researcher, author, and speaker, she's known for translating cutting-edge science into practical strategies that improve body image, mental health, and inclusion. Dr. Diedrichs is a professor of psychology at the Center for Appearance Research at the University of Western England, west of England, Bristol. I screw that up every time because I just say UWE, but if I said UWE, nobody besides us would know what that is. And a founder of Everybody Consulting, which is a global team of scientists working with brands like Dove and Nike and Instagram to challenge beauty norms and build equitable societies. She's offered over 100 peer-reviewed studies, and her work is regularly featured in outlets like, the BBC, Vogue, the New York Times, and Time Magazine. She's contributed to teaching case studies at the Harvard Business School and the School of Public Health. She's designed educational tools and campaigns that she's co-created have reached over 130 million young people in 148 countries. In 2024, she published a best-selling body confidence book for teens, which is now translated into 5 languages. She also advises major organizations, including the Mayor of London, the UK Government Equalities Office, Unilever, and Meta. Please give a warm welcome to my colleague, Dr. Professor Phillippa Diedrichs.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming here tonight. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to Nicole and the Tucker team, who have made me feel so welcome on my second trip to Minneapolis and to the Tucker Center. And I say this quite a lot, but for me, one of my favorite things is being in a room of really smart, passionate, intelligent, purpose-driven women. And the Tucker Center couldn't embody that better than anyone else, really. And preparing this talk has also been a really nice opportunity for me to reflect on the work that we've done with the Tucker Center and the hard graft, really, that goes into translating research into action and how it takes many, many years. And sometimes you're so busy doing that and then moving on to the next thing that you kind of forget almost what you did together. And so this has been a really lovely experience for me as well to look back and reflect. And so I wanted to say a huge thank you to Nicole in particular for inviting me here. Before I start, because a lot of my work is with industry, and for sometimes there can be skepticism about researchers and academics partnering with industry for good reason in some cases. I want to be upfront and disclose because I think it's really important with industry funding to do that, to say that I've had research funding from Nike and Dove and also consultancy. And it's going to become very obvious why, because I'm going to take you through what that research and consultancy has looked at. So what we're going to cover this evening is why body image matters. I've been a body image researcher now for over 2 decades. And for a long time, in fact, I gave my first presentation on body image when I was in year 10 at secondary school, which is wild to think about. I had no plans back then to become a researcher, by the way, but it's something that I'm very passionate about and have always been really interested in how culture, society, and politics shapes our relationship with our bodies and our relationship with our well-being. And sometimes, particularly if you're a woman or a girl or a genderqueer person, constrains our ability to have well-being, and that's something that we're trying to change with the work that we've been doing. I want to look at the state of play when it comes to body image, particularly in sport and movement settings. Then Nicole has touched on body confident sport. I'm going to take you through what it is, but more importantly, how we built it, because you can read the research papers with body confident sport. You can Google it and you'll see lots of kind of press coverage. You can download the tools for free at bodyconfidentsport.com. But one of the things that I love to hear is the story behind how these things happened that you can't read in a journal article. So that's what I'm hoping to cover tonight, with the hopes that it might make you think differently about the role of research. It might get you to feel inspired about the impact, if you're doing research, that can have on people, and the importance of academia and scholarship. And then I want to share some of the lessons learned from this partnership, but I really think that they are representative of the lessons that I've learned working with industry partners like the ones that Nicole has shared, which comes with its challenges, but also some really exciting wins. So before I get started, I want to do a little bit of a body image 101 for you, a whistle stop tour very, very quickly, so that we're all on the same page when we talk about body image and body confidence. Because it has become, just in the time that I've been looking at it, the public discourse, the media coverage and attention, particularly on social media, has gained a lot of traction. Most people will have now heard about the body positivity movement, and think what you will about that. I think it's important to level set on what we mean. So as body image researchers, what we're talking about when we talk about body image is how people think and feel about the way they look, but also what their bodies can do. So we're talking about appearance and function. Often when people think about body image, they think about the appearance bit or the looks bit. But actually it relates to what our bodies can do in their functions, which immediately you can start to see the intersections with sport and movement. But what do we mean by body confidence? Because if you follow anyone on social media, or a body positive or BOPO influencer, you might have some idea, and there's been a lot of criticism about that as well, and a lot of pushback when it comes to positive body image and body confidence. But what we're talking about when we talk about body confidence, like what are we actually trying to achieve with these tools like body confidence sport and other tools? Where are we trying to get people with their feelings and how they relate to their bodies? It is not about loving your body or loving every aspect of your body. If you can do that, great, but I've never met someone who can do that. You don't have to love every part of your body, actually, to have body confidence or positive body image. What we're talking about and what we're aiming for is to help people accept and respect their bodies. And despite any perceived imperfections or challenges that they might face with their relationship with their bodies as they go through lives, because everybody will at different stages, because our bodies will naturally change. And we also live in a very difficult environment when it comes to the pressures we face about how we look, whether that's aging, skin color, weight, if you have a distinguishing feature like a birthmark or a scar, how you choose to express your gender. There still is an ability to overall see your body as a positive influence on your life and to accept and respect it and appreciate it, ideally, for what it can do for you and how it is a powerful instrument and tool that allows you to move through life, which is the antithesis, unfortunately, to how women and girls are socialized to see their bodies as objects to be looked at and consumed by other people. So body confidence is really the opposite of that. It's also about being in tune with your body and being able to listen to your body and connect with it and listen to what it needs, whether that comes to rest, whether that comes to pain, whether that comes to stretching and movement, whether it comes to hunger signals, pleasure cues, for example. And not only to be able to recognize them and be in tune with that and be embodied, but to honor those needs and to take steps to care for your body. Interestingly, when you look at the research of people who have positive body image, we tended to look at those top two things first, but what we've also found is that people who have body confidence develop quite sophisticated skills to protect their bodies from external pressures. I should say that I would ideally like to live in a world where we don't have to do that labor and that work, but unfortunately we do. And what we see, people with body confidence will cognitively filter out some of the pressures or buffer them, or have a way in which that they can see that they're feeling pressure and have an internal dialogue to dismiss it. Or they might cultivate an environment or a social media feed that makes them feel good and inspired, or maybe just neutral rather than feeling bad about themselves. And finally, people with body confidence are much more likely to value inclusivity and diversity when it comes to appearance. So rejecting narrow beauty ideals and also gender stereotypes about how people should look based on their gender, but also, interestingly, to value diversity when it comes to what an athlete looks like as well. Unfortunately, though, since about the mid-80s, body image researchers have acknowledged that having body confidence, what I just described to you, is not the norm. And in fact, in 1985, one of the researchers said it's now a normative discontent. It is unfortunately more normal for women and girls to not have body confidence and to feel shame, guilt, disgust around their bodies. And, depending on how it's measured, I've seen estimates as high as 80%, but roughly, if you look across the research, what you tend to see is around 6 in 10 girls experience low body confidence. And I would say the other 4 in 10 are not experiencing that body confidence. There's some in the middle that are going to be more neutral, and then some that have what we're aiming for here. And why does this matter? This is something I spend a lot of time talking about. And people often think of body confidence, well, it's pretty trivial. There's much more important things in the world. Why should we care? And it's often minimized sometimes by saying, well, isn't it just an issue for young girls? And even if that was the case, which it's not, it actually affects people of all genders and all ages, that should be sufficient alone. Because when we look at the research of the impact that it has on people's lives, we know that 8 in 10 girls will opt out of important life activities because of being concerned about how they look. And these aren't trivial activities. These are things like putting your hand up in the classroom, giving an opinion, going to the doctor, trying out for a team or club. And we've now got over 3 decades of really robust research, empirical research, looking at what is the impact of this. So if you experience low body confidence, how does it impact different parts of your life? And what we see from that research is it impacts all key areas. So most obviously physical and mental health. You're more likely to experience depression, anxiety. Body dissatisfaction is the #1 changeable risk factor for developing an eating disorder. When it comes to also physical health, substance misuse, over-exercising or avoiding exercise. But what most people don't think about so much, although it resonates deeply because everyone has a story about their bodies and has probably experienced one of these things, is that it also impacts education and work. It impacts how girls can concentrate in the classroom. It, as I said, impacts their confidence to speak up and participate. It also curtails their aspirations of what they think that they can achieve. And if you're feeling ashamed of your body or not confident, you don't want to take up space in the workplace. You don't want to put yourself on display. You wouldn't want to do what I'm doing right now. We also know it affects sex and relationships. If you have low body confidence and you struggle to value your body, it's really hard to get other people to value your body. So girls are much more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviours, have challenges with relationships with their peers, their family, intimate relationships. And one of the things that really crushes me above and beyond all of this is how it affects their agency and their aspirations. And there's this really classic study which has an amazing title, which is Objects Don't Object. And it's by a researcher called Rachel Calogero. And essentially what that study showed empirically, which is something that we've suspected for a long time, if you experience low body confidence and you've internalized the idea that your body is an object to be looked at by other people, you're actually less likely to speak up and challenge the systems that are oppressing you and creating that environment. So girls and women who self-objectify and experience low body confidence are less likely to engage in any gender activism at any level. So they're less likely to challenge that. And when you've got 6 in 10 girls feeling that way, it's really deeply distressing when already they're at a disadvantage before they even start because of the many gender biases that exist. Also, if you're interested in money, and this is great, this is the first time I've actually been able to use the stat in the US, but some colleagues and I it was led by Harvard School of Public Health, but also Deloitte Economics and some other researchers from around the world. We looked at the economic costs of experiencing body dissatisfaction and appearance-based prejudice due to hair, weight, and skin shade prejudice. And what we found is that the annual cost to the US economy alone of this, in productivity and health costs and well-being costs, was $500 billion. That's in the US alone for 1 year. So imagine the worldwide costs of that. So, well, what do we do about this? This is very depressing. Don't worry, it gets better. But I say that because this is not something to be dismissed. It's affecting a huge proportion of the population, and it has these significant consequences. So researchers, we've not only been looking at what kind of contributes to these problems and what influences them, which is really important if you want to change them, because you need to know what to target. We've also spent a lot of time developing tools and interventions to change this. And these are tools that go across all levels. So they're from giving girls and young women and young people the skills and the strategies to resist those pressures. But I don't think we can only focus on that, because I think that is victim blaming, and ideally we shouldn't have to learn those skills. So it's really important as well that we challenge this at all systems. which is what is one of the interesting things about working with industry, is that you might start off by working on something like what we're talking about here with body confidence sport, but you develop really deep, trusting relationships with people who work in industry, and then you can influence things in a broader way as well, rather than just these programs. So my research centre and I started an academic partnership with Dove and the Dove Self-Esteem Project back in 2014. When most people think about Dove, they think about, depending on how old you are, you might think about the Women in White Underwear campaign, which was groundbreaking. For those of you who don't know that, when I started my PhD and was doing it, which was around 2005 to 2009, and I was looking at body size diversity and advertising in the fashion industry, and I was doing interviews and focus groups, and one of the only examples that people could give at that stage was Dove. We now, fortunately, live in a very different advertising landscape, but Dove have really been in the space of body confidence for a long time, and they were one of the pioneers in industry for showing body size diversity as well as age diversity. But what some people don't know is they also had what was started off being the Dove Self-Esteem Fund, but is now the Dove Self-Esteem Project, which is their social mission, which is focused on equipping the next generation with educational tools to promote body confidence. And so we formed a partnership back in 2014, and what we brought to that partnership was the evidence, the research, the knowledge about the things that I've just talked about, but also really importantly, we'd established in the research some effective ways to change body image. Dove, on the other hand, had huge reach and huge influence and big budgets, but also creativity. Like if you think about brands, they can influence people. And when you work with leading brands, you get to work with really smart, creative people who know how to do things differently. And they're often very in tune with what's going on in society and in cultural moments. So we united, and there's a big backstory to that, which we don't have time to talk about. But essentially what the goal of our partnership when we created it in 2014, and this partnership is still going now, so we're 11 years in, and we revise our aims and our goals every year, and it has stayed the same, which is to build the evidence base and the global reach of body confidence tools for young people. So what that has looked like, if I was to summarize the past 11 years of my life, has been developing over 20 evidence-based tools and interventions for young people that try to promote body confidence. We've conducted over 20 randomized control trials and published them to evaluate that. We've innovated in the sense of looking at unique ways to reach young people at scale. So we started off with evidence-based workshops in schools, which was really fundamental. We created the first evidence-based Girl Guides and Girl Scouts program in the world, the badge program. There is a body confident Free Being Me badge that Girl Guides and Girl Scouts get now. We've created animations with Cartoon Network, a chatbot with UNICEF, Blippi, that's on Netflix if you want to watch that, Roblox games, and all sorts of different things, and trying to really break through and disrupt and reach young people where they are with body confidence tools. And as a result of that, and through this partnership, as well as other organisations that we've partnered with, like UNICEF and Roblox, etc., we have managed to reach 137 million young people, now in 153 countries around the world, with evidence-based body confidence education tools, which is pretty phenomenal. And it's a really rapid translation and impact, which we'll talk about the pros and cons of that shortly. However, one of the things that we're always doing every year is really thinking about, where do we go next? What are we missing? How do we reach more girls? But really importantly, there are never going to be enough psychologists, body image experts, or mental health professionals to deliver evidence-based tools. You can't just rely on them. We need to be engaging community partners, parents, teachers, influential figures in girls' lives to be delivering evidence-based programs. And also, while we want to deliver those evidence-based programs, we also want to disarm the environment. So what settings are some of these pressures coming from? And one of the areas that we came up with is, what about sport and movement settings? This was an area that we hadn't looked at in detail, but obviously there are huge volumes of young people convening, and you have millions of adults, volunteer coaches, and some paid coaches who give up their time to work closely with young people. So we wanted to look at that. So as all academics and researchers do, what we started with was a literature review. So Emily and I, who you're going to see Emily's photo a lot in this was what we delivered back in 2020. But preparing for this, I found our initial proposal, which was in 2019 to do this work. So we did a rapid evidence review of the relationship between body confidence and sport and movement settings to see what was out there. And this was kind of what we found with the state of play. I'm presenting more up-to-date stats and research than what we found back then, but the results were pretty consistent. And what we saw was that 85% of teenage girls are not moving their bodies to what is recommended by bodies like the World Health Organization. And of the girls who are moving their bodies and are participating in organised sport, almost half of them are dropping out during their teenage years, and they're dropping out at twice the rate of boys. And so why are they doing this? Well, there's lots of different factors why. But interestingly, during this partnership, we did a study with over 3,500 girls in multiple countries around the world to look at what are some of the barriers for them. And this is what they identified and spoke about. And low body confidence was the number one barrier for girls' participation in sport and movement, amongst a whole host of other barriers. So what does this look like? Why is low body confidence having an impact on girls' movement in sport? So lots of different ways if we start to think about it. This is what the girls told us, but this is also what comes out in the research. One really crucially is the stereotype we have about what athletes should look like. If I said to you right now, bring to mind what an athlete looks like, you can very quickly, I imagine, get an image in your head. And if we had more time, there'd probably be some specific attributes that are fairly consistent. Objectification, which we've already talked about, which particularly in sporting environments can be a result of the uniforms being ill-fitting, uncomfortable, or sometimes revealing. Disordered eating comes up a lot, and the focus on weight and dieting in sport and movement environments. Appearance-related teasing and commentary and bullying and discrimination, sometimes really overt, and sometimes just commentary that might be banter or in jest, or even the person doing it thinks it's quite neutral. Weight bias and fat phobia, and also beauty pressures to look a certain way. So very real things like not wanting to go back to class with a red face, or your hair being frizzy, and not wanting to sweat because, God forbid, a girl sweats. And this kind of is really interesting to me, and I still now, although it's getting less and less, it still makes me smile a little bit that I am in these sport and movement spaces, because I was one of the girls who dropped out of sport. And this is Phillippa back in the 80s in Australia, and a moment to appreciate my fluorescent glasses, headband, and swimsuit. And what I love about this, though, it's like my pose and how I'm standing, and doing the opposite, really, of what most women end up being socialized to do, which is you don't stand pushing your stomach out to begin with. And it makes me a little bit sad when I think about little Phillippa, though, because at that stage I was swimming and playing netball, and I really enjoyed that. But when I got to secondary school, I stopped doing that. And if I reflect, I think it's a couple of reasons. I liked it because it was fun, and I liked running around with my friends. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I didn't really pay that much attention to it, really, or invest that much time in it, because I was doing lots of other things, but I enjoyed doing it. But then became this culture of what level you were in, even though we were at high school. It's not like we were training for the Olympics or anything, but what division you were in. Also, the environment in Australia at that point. Australia, the sporting culture and the focus, and I grew up by the beach. But it was kind of savage in terms of the objectification and the fat phobia that was so rife. And if you look back at media then, it was so normalised as well to do that. Where I grew up, I can remember there was a brand, I think it was a clothing brand for skaters, and their slogan and the bumper stickers that were on cars said "No fat chicks." And that was kind of funny or ironic. I don't know what that was, but the fact that that was appropriate. And I can remember that pressure on me and my friends to look a certain way. And I can remember that exercise and movement became something about discipline and disciplining my body, about shrinking or controlling my body. And that's really not fun. And I had other interests in life, so why would I spend my time doing that when, I was really interested in music and culture and other things? But I now know of how much I missed out as a result of that and how hard it's been since then to regain my own relationship with sport and my body, which I have since done. I now lift weights and do other things that I never imagined I would do. But I missed out on that for so long, and there were so many things that I had to do to unlearn those pressures. So how do we change it? What do we do? Well, when we were doing the literature review, what became really clear was the role of coaches. And when I'm talking about coaches, and when we talk about coaches in body confidence sport, it's any adult that is working with young people in a movement setting. So they might be professional coaches, they might be PE teachers, or they might be a volunteer parent or someone else. Everyone in this room could become a coach for girls' sports. And what we saw in the research really clearly was that they play a powerful role in shaping girls' perceptions of their bodies, but also they tend to surveil girls' bodies and assess their bodies. And they often see them as performance tools, and that is the way that they're approaching girls' bodies. And also they may underestimate their impact on the girls that they work with in terms of not just their performance and the sport and the team culture, but their impact on them psychologically and emotionally. And so we got to thinking, okay, this looks like a really great area that would be great to dive into more and do something about it. Because not only do we want to reduce these toxic pressures that might be happening in these settings, but how about if we created a movement that allowed girls to reclaim their relationship with movement and sport so that girls like me don't drop out and get to have all the benefits of movement and sport? We also really clearly recognise Dove are world leaders in the body confidence space, in beauty. They're also now the world's largest provider of evidence-based body confidence and self-esteem education. My research centre, the Centre for Appearance Research, we're a world-leading research centre in body image and internationally regarded. And we had some members of our team, shout out to Emily and Kat, who had already been doing research in this space. So we weren't completely new, but we also knew that we weren't the experts in this space. And so we were thinking about, okay, who would we like to partner with? And one of the amazing things about working with someone like Dove is that you can dream big when you think about who you want to partner with, because they have a reputation, they have might, they have resource, and they have connections. So we started coming up with our wish list. Well, who do you partner with to reach and influence girls and reach coaches? And there were two that came to mind. One was Nike. If you think about sport and you think about a brand, Nike is a standout one. And then also we were like, well, who are the experts when it comes to research for coaching girls? And when we talked to Nike as well, they were like, well, if you want to work with us, you need to talk to Nicole. And then we'll see, this is literally, and, I'd like to know what Nicole thinks of this. So I was like, oh, okay. Luckily for me, though, I remember that meeting very well on Zoom. And it was like meeting a kindred spirit very quickly with Nicole. Even though we came from very different backgrounds and different personal experiences with sport and even professional disciplines, the shared passion for girls, women, and breaking down barriers was there. And also the shared passion for translating research, not just doing research for the sake of it, but actually doing strategic science that's going to solve social problems. And also world leaders in research on this topic. So we approached Nike, who then said we needed to talk to Tucker. We then talked, unfortunately, we hit it off. And so what started in 2020 was a four-way partnership between two of the world's biggest brands, Dove and Nike, and two world-leading research centres, Tucker and the Centre for Appearance Research, or CAR as we refer to it. This is the brilliant team, because one of the really cool things about this project is genuinely being women-powered and women-led, and Courtney, I can see you in the room. Hannah is up there. Anna is here. The Tucker team is here. Nicole. You can also see up here my colleagues at CAR, Emily, Aline, and Kat. And then you've got Kelsey and Mariette from Nike. Unfortunately, our Dove partners weren't there, but that's Stacey and Vic as well. And we worked together for a very long time to make this happen, and that's what I want to show you. But when we started this, we united under, even though we came from different backgrounds and different approaches, and each of our organizations had slightly different missions, we were all united under our kind of common values that we wanted to create a world in which girls can thrive and reach their full potential and feel comfortable in their bodies as well. So we came together, and this is what we committed to, is that we will empower and educate coaches to foster body confidence and inspire body confident athletes to participate. And when we talk about athletes here, we're meaning any girl that moves her body. So what did it look like? Well, in 2020 to 2021, we thought, okay, we need to do more research because that's what all good researchers do. Then we're going to consult with girls and coaches, and then we're going to develop the tools. So we also were like, okay, there's some common principles here that we want to do. At CAR, we'd developed a lot of interventions and tools, as I've kind of already highlighted. Tucker had been working on coaching her and various programs of research as well. So we were all signed up to the fact that we wanted it to be evidence-based. And what evidence-based means to us is that it's theoretically driven, based on the best available science that we know, but also informed by the end users as well and other experts in the space, in this case, girls and coaches, but also other sporting organisations and youth organisations as well. We also just didn't want to reduce the risk factors or the pressures. We also wanted to move beyond that and focus on protective factors and dialing that up as well. Central to this was we needed to centre girls and coaches. So we needed to centre what their concerns were, what their preferences were for the tools, and importantly, a global approach. We were working with global brands. And so it wasn't just about focusing on the UK or the US, where each of our respective centres were based. We wanted to have global impact from the start. Then what was really crucial is it wasn't enough just to create something with best intentions and experts and all of that. We needed to make sure that it actually worked. Was it doing the things that we hoped it was doing? Because if you look consistently across the body image research, roughly what you see when you look at meta-analyses and literature reviews is roughly half of them tend to get significant effects. And that's programs that are developed by so-called experts in the area. And so it's really important if you're going to invest all this money, this time and energy into something that it actually does what it's meant to do. Also, coaches are busy. If we're going to ask them to do something, we want to be sure that we're giving them the best tools and it's worth their time and energy to do it. So we also wanted to test, is the program's feasible, acceptable, and effective? So we started off with another literature review, and more kind of rigorous this time. We did a systematic review and a meta-analysis, and the team, not me, scanned over 8,000 journal articles. And we identified 31 studies in 7 countries that met our criteria. And we were interested in looking at studies that had evaluated interventions or programs that had targeted the intersection of girls' body image and movement. And essentially what we found was that the existing tools that were out there were only marginally effective. So they might have had short-term effects or quite small effect sizes, or they were ineffective. What we also saw as a pattern across the research is that it wasn't the most methodologically rigorous or with high quality. And that's not because those people, were bad researchers, but as we know, this is an area that's chronically underfunded and difficult to do, which makes it hard to do really rigorous research. But we saw that a lot of them weren't theoretically informed. They tended to focus on risk and pathology and reducing problems rather than the protective side. And they overwhelmingly were delivered by specialists. So they often were delivered by the researchers who created them or people like the Tucker Centre or CAR. As I've said before, that is not going to be sustainable or scalable because there is never going to be enough experts to meet the demand for these types of tools. And that applies to most public mental health issues and public health issues. So one thing to point out, all of this research has been published. Nicole told me 13 papers that has come out of this partnership. I'm not going to give you all the references, but they are published, and you're going to see a QR code on the slides where there is an associated study. If you're interested, scan that, and it will take you to a website where you can see all of the papers. But it was really important to us that we published what we found as well, so that other people could benefit from what we were doing. So what we established was, okay, there's no effective available tool that meets our needs, or that meets the kind of goals that we had to improve body confidence and equipped coaches. So we thought, okay, let's talk to girls and coaches rather than just making assumptions about what would work. So we spent a lot of time, the teams did, talking in depth through focus groups, and workshops and also surveys, but most of the sample was focus groups, so a huge amount of data to analyse. And we spoke to 102 girls and young women. Most of them were aged 11 to 17. The others were a little bit older, they were young women on a youth advisory board in 13 countries, but particularly concentrated in 6 countries: France, India, Japan, Mexico, the UK, and the US. And what did we find? Again, you can read the paper to go in detail, but essentially what we saw was all of the things that we'd found in our literature review previously come to life. So it was such a rich data set with so many quotes, but I'm just going to show you a couple of them here. And also what was quite striking was that although there were some cultural nuances and differences, more often than not, though, these experiences were universal, irrespective of where these girls were coming from. So here's an example. These are pseudonyms, but of Amber, who said, I used to love dancing, but I used to compare myself to the other girls, like looking at how long their thighs were and how big mine were compared to them. And that made her feel ashamed. Here's Lucia from Mexico. The teacher was a bit macho and he told us, well, there are men, they will be looking, when the girls had expressed that they were concerned and that they wanted to wear sweatpants and baggy clothes to cover their bodies. And they were told, well, they're going to look at you anyway, even if you wear that. And they're just some of, I could show you quotes from France, from Japan, from India that reflect the same. And also, though, when we looked at the common themes of their experience and preferences. So when we looked at their experiences, it mimicked what we'd seen in the research already: objectification and surveillance from coaches and also spectators, whether that was parents or perhaps boys or classmates watching. Teasing and bullying about appearance. Interestingly, a lot of the girls reported as well that they found that the pressure to compete and perform in sport was too much or a deterrent from them. They didn't find it fun. They said it can often, sport is too serious. But they also identified the benefits of sport that we know that exist in terms of the sense of mastery, the sense of self-esteem and confidence that they could gain from it, and body confidence as well, but it was hard for them to access it because of these pressures. And when we asked them what support they would like in sport and movement settings, they told us that they really would like a program like this to be delivered in a girl-only space, because that's what felt safe to them. They said that they would really like the coaches to be supportive but knowledgeable, that coaches need to know about this topic and feel equipped to deliver it. Individual and group activities, and then a mixture of formats. We also spoke to coaches, so 34 coaches in 6 countries, again, using focus groups. There were actually interviews as well and surveys. And what we found is that the coaches deeply care about girls. They are so committed and they care about the girls that they coach a lot. But what they told us is that they really feel ill-equipped and they really lack confidence to address the topic of body confidence. They know that it's important, but they don't know what to do. Or if they have an inkling, they don't feel confident in their skills to do it. And many of them said because they experience low body confidence as well. They also told us if they have a support tool, it needs to be accessible. They're busy people. A lot of them are volunteers. We need to meet them where they are, so it needs to be online. And it needs to be chunks that they can do, not necessarily all in one go. And important to coaches was that it was quality assured, so that there was some kind of indication that this was credible. So we developed Body Confidence Sport off the back of all of this research and all of this consultation. So body confidence sport is actually 2 programs. We identified quickly, the first one was body confident athletes. So this was a program that was for girls in sport and movement settings delivered by coaches. And this is an in-person program, and it's 3 sessions, and it covers 3 different topics: body talk and body commentary, as well as what our bodies experience in sport and how do we recognize the cues and listen to our bodies. And then that is 3 sessions that are roughly 45 minutes to an hour that's delivered by a coach. And the materials are freely available online. They've been translated into lots of languages now. But because we knew that coaches as well struggle with this, like even if we gave them something like this, we wanted to make sure they felt confident and comfortable to deliver it. It was important to also develop support for coaching. And fortunately, we were working with the world leaders in that, the Tucker Center, and they were developing Coaching Her. So we were like, great, let's create a module that coaches can use to upskill them in body confidence. And so there are 5 20-minute, is that correct? Courtney, I can't, 5 20-minute modules, start at 3 20-minute modules that coaches can work through online in their own time, meeting their needs and preferences. Here's an example. Another perk of working with major brands is that they are very visual. They can create amazing videos and content. That's Emily, our researcher. So there's a workbook, there's session guides, there's also a handbook for the coaches. And Body Confident Coach is online modules that they can work through, tip sheets, etc. They get a certificate at the end for coaches, and as I said, you can find all this online. We then spent a lot of time testing it. Does it actually work? So we conducted 2 randomized control trials with 136 coaches, 516 athletes across 40 sports. It was really important to us that this wasn't just specifically for one type of sport. We wanted this to be as accessible as possible. And we measured, compared to a weightless control groups, the impact of taking part in body confident coaching and body confident athletes separately. So they were 2 randomized control trials. And we measured these outcomes up to 3 months later. Coaches, we were really looking to measure, did it actually improve how confident they felt to address body image with their athletes? And this is the level that we kind of went to in this research, that there wasn't a scale to measure that. So Hannah and the team created one and validated it, which is now a great tool that's available, and there's another paper on that, to measure, could we reduce their fat phobia and gender essentialism? And for girls, we wanted to know, could we improve their body image, improve their mood, but how much they enjoy sport as well? And what we found is that the tools were effective in the randomized control trials. And rather than give you all the data points and graphs, essentially this is what we found, is that body confident athletes improved girls' body image, reduced the extent to which they self-objectified, and improved their mood. They said that they found the topics relatable, the strategies were useful, and they were easy and enjoyable. And I think that's because we asked girls in the first place what we wanted. We were giving them what they asked for. When it came to coaches, it reduced their gender stereotyping, this is body confident coaching now, and their levels of fat phobia. And it also increased their confidence in addressing body image as well. Here are just some of the quotes that we got, and there were like hundreds of these, but things like coaches saying, I learned so much and feel better equipped to coach female athletes. I think all coaches should be trained in this. The girls saying that they felt validated and that their experiences were shared, that they liked hearing other girls talk about similar struggles and knowing that they weren't alone, and that overall the message of the program was amazing. So we developed all these tools, did all this work, and now we had to get them out there. So this was one of like my career highlights. This is the team in New York, almost 2 years to the day. I think it was the 23rd of October, actually. 2 years ago in New York at Nike HQ, we launched Body Confidence Sport to a room full of media and social media influencers. And we led them through some of the activities. There was press. We even had Venus Williams there on a panel. And it was just an amazing, and there were girls as well in the room, it was just an amazing moment to celebrate what we had created and to get it out there. Nicole, like in particular, is overjoyed here. But it was a really fun day. And also, we met? I'm not sure. We hadn't even met face to face at this point. So this was the first time that the whole team was in the room together. But since then, you create something, you put it out there. How do you make sure that people are actually using it? And this is where I think the Tucker Centre, in particular for academics, excels. They don't just stop at the research and creating something. They put all this infrastructure and support to make them get out there. With this, again, through the profile and the expertise of Nike and Dove, we were able to generate huge press and attention for this and momentum. But really importantly, to Nike and Dove have invested in grants for different sporting organisations for them to use the tools. They have created coaching events around the world about the topic of body confidence to bring awareness to it and then to promote the tools. Super Bowl ads. I mean, if you told me that I was going to be developing an intervention that would then be in 2 Super Bowl ads, like I wouldn't have believed you. And it's still going 2 years later. This is the really interesting thing about body confidence sport. As we were doing it, it kind of becomes a no-brainer when you start thinking about it. Of course, there should be something on body confidence in sport and movement settings, but that's not the case. And the response has been so overwhelmingly positive from coaches and sporting organisations about how much it resonates and how important it is. We had an email recently from Nike. They just did a coaching event in Portland, Oregon, at their headquarters, of covering lots of different topics. And the body confidence part was the bit that really resonated with coaches. There's been lots of derivative content because different organisations have really loved it. So, for example, in the middle there, that's Emily again. She's now like a media superstar. She's very good at it. She doesn't really like doing it, even though she's so good at it. But partnerships with Rebel Girls media platform, books, podcasts, and other YouTube content for girls. There is a huge machine behind all of this, but it's driving attention and awareness to the body confidence tools. So, what are the takeaway lessons from all of this? One of them is to buckle up, because if you want to work with industry, it's incredibly fast and complex. The speed at which they make decisions, or the speed at which they want things to happen, is not at all consistent with the speed at which we do things in academia and the way our systems are set up. So that's really challenging to navigate. And I would also say that our systems need to get quicker if we're going to do robust, responsive science. And perhaps industry could do things a little bit slower. But we persevered. I mean, this was a really long project for them. They are not used to working on 3-year projects to do the research and the rigor. But this was really important to them to invest in it. And yet, it still feels like it takes a long time. I'm not a parent, but I've had so many parents say things like the days are long, but the years go fast. And I feel like that's how it felt with this project as well. It takes a long time to build trust, to build the relationship, but also to get in those rooms in the first place. I've been studying this for 20 years. Nicole's been doing it for a long time. The Tucker Centre has existed for a long time. It takes a long time. But when you can make it happen, it's amazing that the impact that you can have. Collaboration is so important. I think in academia, sometimes we have a culture, and it's because we live in a system of scarcity for funding. Also, how you have to prove yourself to become a professor or to get tenure is often showing your unique contribution. Every paper that we write, you have to really explicitly say how what you did is groundbreaking and novel, which is great because you don't want to spend money on things that, don't need doing, or you don't want to reinvent the wheel. But at the same time, it can create this culture of individualism, I think, and ego and competition. And as a result of that, we can try and think that we have to be the leading experts and know everything. And in my experience, the most impactful programs, but also the most fun I've had working, is when it's been in collaboration. I actually can't really think about, since my PhD, any study that I've done that wasn't done in collaboration. But not only do you the knowledge that you generate and the research that you do and the products or tools that you create even better, it is just so much fun working with like-minded people who share a common vision. like, this is not staged. This is kind of the joy that we have, like, as we come together and still do now. And the partnerships are key to the reach and impact. As academics, we couldn't have done this without our brand partners, but the brand partners wouldn't have had the credibility or the knowledge to do it without working with us. And finally, shared values are super important. There are many challenges to doing this work, and the wheels fall off or almost fall off quite a lot, but relationships are the glue, because if you have the shared values, even when things get challenging and you have different competing pressures or missions or constraints, if you can come back to what you're doing and your why of you're doing it, which we all had that shared value and that shared mission, that helps to realign. It helps to smooth over some of the rough edges and the sharp bits. And it keeps you coming back and, you know, being together. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to come to do this lecture, not only was it an honour, and it was great to talk about body confident sport, but because I wanted to hang out with Nicole in the Tucker Centre, because, you know, academia can be hard and challenging, but there's a joy and a pleasure of the people that you work with. So there's little Phillippa, and this is little Nicole, actually. In Minnesota. And the cool thing about this partnership is I'm not the sporty person. I still am not the sporty person, and I'm quite happy and comfortable with that. Nicole is a very sporty person and has been throughout her whole life. And if you go into her office, there are many trophies and things that she is still getting, but loves sport. And so two very different parts of the world, two very different relationships with sport. But I think us today, I think we feel pretty proud, and I think if we look back to little Nicole and little Phillippa, we'd feel proud of what we've created with our teams. So thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed that. If you want to find out about body confidence sport, go to the website. If you're interested in body image in general, you can scan that and you'll get a whole list of my go-to resources for women, for young people, for schools, podcasts, etc. And yeah, thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to come along.
Wow. I mean, I was part of the project, but that was so cool. Thank you for putting that together. I'm going to join you over here. Check 1, 2.
Hello.
Hello.
This is what it's like with us, just this big love fest, like of hyping each other up.
Yeah. That's how it should
and
be.
You get to hear another half an hour of it.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't even know where to start. When we present this work, which we've been presenting it for a couple of years now, we had a conversation last night at dinner that we get the same set of questions around this work. And so we're going to start there. But I remember that first meeting on Zoom when you called and we set up a Zoom meeting. And you had me at the ecological systems model, because we both loved the ecological systems model. And we're like, this was meant to be, because this is our language. And so it sounds really nerdy, but that's really how it started. And we knew that we were on sound footing together, and it's grown since then. Do you remember that?
No, but I trust you.
Okay. I remember my circles, and we talked the circles model, and you're like, you had similar circle ecological models in your work, so it was meant to be. Okay, so here is question number 1 that we get. And I'm going to pretend I'm a coach or a parent or a athlete. Okay, Dr. Diedrichs, I understand body confidence sport, but in my sport, I'm an elite high performance running coach, and girls and women have to be lean to be fast. So that's just the type of body required to be good at my sport. So what do I do with that?
The short answer is it's a complex answer, actually, because there may be some sports where there is an advantage to having a certain body type, and certainly if you're at an elite level, that can be beneficial. But we also need to think about at what cost that can come with to the athlete or to the team. And also, the vast majority of girls are not going to become elite athletes. And the vast majority don't aspire to be elite athletes. So when we're talking about sport and movement and inviting girls in, we need to be thinking about that. And also, there are so many different body types and shapes and sizes in so many different disciplines when it comes to sport. And that's what we need to be thinking about as well. So what is the cost of that? Are we applying metrics for elite athletes to groups of girls that don't need to have those metrics? And also, is that actually the case and true in that circumstance? That's my response. What's yours?
Well, I think my response typically is sort of challenging this narrative that might be somewhat false, that only certain types of bodies can do sport really well all the time. So it's never either, it's not this or that, it's a both and to open up coaches' minds about, yes, I understand you have concerns about high performance, but those concerns are also informed by the system of gender stereotypes and bias and gender norms around female bodies that rarely do coaches interrogate. And so I think what I love about body confidence sport and what I've seen with coaches I've worked with is it starts getting coaches to think differently about performance and girls' and women's bodies and confronting their own stereotypes and bias around those things. So, but that is a really common question I get almost every time I present this.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for coaches to be hearing from people in their own circles, because it's all very well me as a body image person coming in and saying that, but I think hearing that from someone credible and legitimate in the space, like Nicole or other coaches, that is really impactful. So I think thinking about the role that we all have to advocate for girls and women with these messages is really important.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of one case in particular where I had a really in-depth conversation with a high-performance running coach. And it was an hour-long discussion of me sort of just gently challenging their assumptions. And at the end of the conversation, you know, that coach was just like, wow, thank you. I never thought of how my own assumptions can inadvertently create a climate or affect my athletes in ways that I had never thought of. And I think that's the beauty of this tool, Coaching Her and Body Confidence Sport, is we're just inviting coaches in to think differently and to coach differently as a result of what they learn. Yeah. Okay, question 2. You guys can come up with your own questions. Okay, so part of body confident sport is listening to your body. That was part of your 4 circles up there in the definition. And listening to your body and its needs and what it's telling you. But as athletes, we're often in a lot of pain and discomfort. And I'm listening to my body, and as part of my training and competing, if I'm in pain and discomfort and I have to push through that, like, I feel disconnected. So how do I handle that part of my body confidence? I'm listening to my body. My body's telling me to stop. This is painful and uncomfortable, but I'm supposed to push through it. What do I do?
I think you're the expert to answer this one, but I think
I was hoping you had the answer.
I think it is complex, right? Because it's almost like anything. We were talking about this in a writing group that we had today, is that there's a balance between discomfort often when you're doing things that are hard, or getting out of our comfort zone that feels uncomfortable, whether that's physical pain, emotional pain, or anxiety, for example. And sometimes it's hard, like your head hurts when you're learning something new, but that's not a cue to stop. But it's also being able to be in tune with your body to know when is too much, and also at what cost. Is if it's a consistent pushing through pain to the point that there can be injury, or a complete disconnect from your body, then that's too much. It's if you have a particular goal that you want to reach, and we talk about in body confidence this idea of like what you're trying to simultaneously balance your physical health and your mental health at the same time. I mean, that's never going to actually happen in reality, but you need to be weighing those two things up. So if you're in constant physical pain and it's to the point that you can't do other activities that you want to be doing in life, or concentrating or enjoying things, or to the point where you're at risk of injury, or you're lacking sleep and you can't concentrate, that's when it's problematic. So it's about weighing up those things.
Yeah, and I think as athletes and coaches, we often haven't been invited to think about our bodies in that way. Like, yeah, as an athlete, I know my body. I know what it can do. I know what it's supposed to do. I know how it feels. But on another level, what I love about body confident sport is it's helped me think about my body differently in ways that I think are healthier and probably lead to better physical and mental health. And so I think, you know, if I had to rewind and be a college athlete again, or rewind and be a college coach again, knowing what I know now from what I've learned from all of my colleagues doing this project, I would do it completely different. I think I would invite my athletes to think more about their embodied experience as athletes instead of just like your body is a tool for performance, the end. So,
what would you get them to when you say an embodied experience? Because even I sometimes struggle as a body image researcher to define what we mean by embodiment. I think it can sometimes be jargon or a very difficult concept for people to understand, particularly for young people. So if you are what does that look like, or what does that sound like in your head?
let's see. Okay, so it could be something like I'm paying attention to different areas of my body, muscle tension. I'm thinking of like sports psychology techniques around progressive muscle relaxation, of noticing tension or discomfort in certain areas of the body. I might pay attention to how I'm feeling, maybe in my chest, my stomach, my head, and how the muscles and the cognition are related, and just being a little more particular about that instead of just like, I'm doing my third set of a workout and I'm in pain and I want to stop, right? And so, but pushing through that is good for training, but what you said is there's an element of when we push too far and it could lead to injury and or chronic or acute injury, that's problematic. So I think it can be a lot of things.
I think body trust is another thing that comes up, is like if you have to keep pushing through a certain barrier to do something, whether it's pain or something else, there can become a disconnect to your body because it's almost like the only way you can persevere. And it's really interesting. That's what happens in trauma. Like we disconnect from our bodies. And also, as you grow up and socialize, you disconnect from, for example, your hunger cues, because we have to eat at lunchtime at school, or we have to eat at a certain break time. So there are so many parts of the world that are set up to almost disconnect us from our bodily cues. And I think the other thing that's really important is to recognize that athletes are not just athletes in a sporting setting. They are girls, women, or whatever gender they are, operating in a world where there's all these other pressures and ideas about what their bodies should look like and do. And they're not just in a vacuum. And so all of that is happening as well. And I think if you consistently push through that, and also a bit like the first question about, well, if weight or having a low body weight, for example, is really important, but if you are consistently surveilling and commenting on girls' bodies and they're restricting their eating, they're probably not fueling enough. Their energy levels are going to be lower. So ultimately, in terms of their performance, that's going to suffer too.
And I think the other way I'd answer this, and there's a lot of people in this audience that are better clinical and clinicians than me or you in clinical sports psychology, sports medicine that would probably answer this question differently. So maybe I'm staring up here, that we could hear from them.
Please tell us how to answer that question.
But this is a really good question. So let's park that one for now. And those of you who I'm mentioning, you might want to weigh in at the Q&A. Okay, let's go to question number 3. Okay. Oh my gosh, I love body confidence sport. This is amazing. This is a great tool. But, what about boys and men?
This is a question that I get asked not just in the context of body confidence sport, but almost every program that I develop. And what I should say is actually most of the programs that we've created with Dove have actually been mixed gender because we want there to be scale and reach. But when it comes to this one in particular, we asked girls what they want, and girls told us that they want girls-only spaces. And when you looked at their experiences, you could see why. And this is, by that and it being girls-only, doesn't mean that boys and men aren't affected or that they don't have a role to play. This is just one piece of the puzzle of what we need to do to create safe and supportive environments for girls to thrive. And what we also know from the research when we've looked more broadly at body image programs in different settings and compared when you have same gender groups to mixed gender groups, when you ask young people, what they often say is that, yes, we'd like it to be, single gender, but also we can see the benefit of it being mixed gender because it could be good discussions and we can bounce ideas off each other. But also when we ask them, they sometimes will then hold back with what they share and what they say, and they will change their behavior. And that's for boys as well. But interestingly, what we also observe in the research as well is that programs that have been shown to be effective in girls, when we then move them to mixed gender environments, what we tend to see is that the effects for girls disappear or they weaken. Boys benefit, but most of the time the effects disappear for girls. So you need to we were designing this to specifically meet the needs of girls and coaches in this environment, and that's what they asked for, so that's what we delivered. And also the girls were experiencing significant pressures from men and boys, and so they wanted to have a space that they could talk about it. However, I know from all the research that boys and men are affected by body image concerns, and when it comes to sport and movement and fitness and health, it's a really tricky thing to disentangle healthism, but also the appearance ideals for men and boys and traditional dominant masculinity is muscularity, strength, and dominance. And so their ability to be emotionally vulnerable or to experience or talk about their bodies and appearance is really tricky because that's also considered feminine and not masculine. You shouldn't admit to that. You don't talk about appearance. We don't care about the way that we look. Well, actually, in all of our surveys and confidential stuff, we see that they do. But it's really hard to disentangle that because of the stereotype of what a healthy body looks like and what an athletic body looks like as well. So we need to have programs for boys and men. We do need to have some tools that are like mixed gender. But also, I don't think
this isn't that tool.
No, this is not that tool. And also, we need to listen to girls when they don't feel safe. And if we also need to change the environment so that boys are not socialized to think that that's acceptable to comment on girls' bodies as well.
We do get that question. That's maybe the number one question.
Even on International Day of the Girl, I get asked that question. I'm like, can we have one day? Just one day.
Maybe. Okay, last question, then we'll turn it over to the audience. So, body confidence sport is about body acceptance of all body types, including larger bodies. But we are in the midst of an obesity epidemic. So isn't just body confidence sport perpetuating or contributing to this crisis?
Very good question, one that I get asked a lot as well. When you look at public health movements around weight and obesity, and you try and establish what the goals are. So weight loss is one metric of like what is successful, but often it's around behaviors and health and well-being. that's what the idea is. We want people to move their bodies. We want them to have like a balanced diet, to have a healthy relationship with food. We want them to be, have all of these other health metrics. That is the same with what we hope for in terms of body confidence. We don't attribute a weight as an outcome. And the reason that we don't do that is because the research really clearly shows that weight bias and prejudice is a very real thing. And if you experience weight bias, it has negative consequences for your physical health, your mental health, and a range of other things. We also know from really robust research that if you have body confidence, so the things that I talked about, if you have acceptance and respect for your body, irrespective of what your body size is, you are much more likely to move your body regularly. You are much more likely to eat fruits and vegetables, to have lower blood pressure, and to have better physical health irrespective of your body weight. You are also much less likely to fluctuate and your weight to cycle. And there's a lot of research showing that weight cycling is really problematic. So if the goal is about health and well-being and is about health behaviors and is about quality of life and well-being and health metrics, there is no opposition here. In fact, weight bias and fat phobia is associated with weight gain, if weight is an important metric for you, and it's associated with being less likely to exercise and move your body, more likely to binge eat, and also less likely to go to preventive healthcare appointments, and less likely to do all the things that I think most people who work in obesity and public health really want people to do. So actually, we're very aligned.
Okay. I'm going to wrap. We're going to do a wrap. I think there's probably a lot more questions in the audience, but I want to be attentive to our time. Thank you for coming, everybody that's in the room. I hope you took one or two or more nuggets away. And thank you, Dr. Diedrichs, for joining us and the Tucker team for our annual Distinguished Lecture. Can we have another round of applause?